So, what if I told you that the single best career move, the most powerful financial decision I ever made, was to move back into my childhood bedroom at 32 years old? Yeah, you'd probably think I was crazy, a failure, another millennial who couldn't make it. And I get it, that's what I thought too. But this one decision, this seemingly backward step, it allowed me to leap forward in ways I never imagined. If you feel trapped by rent, debt, or just the relentless pressure to keep up, then you absolutely need to hear this. So let's get right into it. When I first told my friends I was moving back in with my parents, I got, a lot of reactions. Amused, mostly tilted heads, and the question, is everything okay? The assumption was just that something had gone terribly wrong. A job loss, a devastating breakup, a financial catastrophe. And in a way, they weren't entirely wrong. I was facing a kind of catastrophe, but it was the slow, quiet kind. The kind that, honestly, millions of us are facing every single day. It was the catastrophe of running on a treadmill. I had a good job, a decent apartment in a city where decent means outrageously expensive, and a life that looked perfect on social media. But behind the scenes, I was saving almost nothing. My student loans felt like a permanent tattoo on my bank account. The dream of owning a home or starting a business or even taking a real stress-free vacation, it felt like a fantasy reserved for someone else. I was working hard, but I wasn't getting ahead. I was just treading water. And that brings me to my first and maybe the most powerful point. Point 1, the financial reset button you didn't know existed. The most immediate and just earth-shattering benefit of moving back home was financial. But I really want you to understand this isn't just about saving a little money on rent. This is about hitting a complete system-wide financial reset button. Let's talk numbers, right? Because they don't lie. My rent, utilities, and internet cost me exactly $2,350 a month. Emphatically, that's $28,200 a year. Gone. Vanished before I even bought groceries or paid for transportation. By moving home, that entire expense was just wiped from my budget. My parents and we agreed on a fair contribution for groceries and utilities, which came to about $400 a month. So my net savings on housing alone were over $23,000 in the first year. Think about that. What could you do with an extra $23,000 a year? For me, it was a weapon. I aggressively paid down my highest interest student loan and I cleared it in 14 months instead of the projected 7 years. I finally built a 6-month emergency fund, a real cushion that let me sleep through the night for the first time in my adult life. The constant low-grade hum of financial anxiety that had been my background music for a decade, it finally went silent. But here's the surprising part that no one talks about. It wasn't just about saving money, it was about changing my relationship with it. When you aren't living check to check, you stop making decisions based on fear, and you start making them based on opportunity. I could finally afford to invest in myself. I took online courses, I bought equipment for a side hustle I'd been dreaming of, and I started investing in the stock market with a real strategy, not just with spare change. It's like playing a video game, For years, I was stuck on a difficult level with no health packs and no special items. Moving home was like discovering a hidden cheat code. It gave me the resources to not just survive the level, but to dominate it. The freedom this creates is something you just can't put a price tag on. It's a mental and emotional liberation. And as we're about to see, this financial freedom is the key that unlocks everything else. But first, we have to talk about the biggest hurdle for most people, the thing that almost stopped me. Point 2, shattering the stigma and redefining success. Okay, let's be honest. In many Western cultures, especially in the US, an adult living with their parents is seen as a sign of arrested development, a failure to launch. We have this incredibly powerful cultural narrative that says success means leaving home at 18 or 22 and never ever looking back. To do otherwise is to admit defeat. And I felt that stigma, deeply. In the first few months, I was almost embarrassed. I would dodge questions about my living situation. I felt this immense pressure to justify my decision to people who, frankly, didn't matter. But then I had a realization. Who created these rules, and why are we still following them when the economic landscape has changed so dramatically? The world that our parents entered as young adults, it just doesn't exist anymore. I mean, according to a 2023 study by the Pew Research Center, 18% of adults aged 25 to 34 are living in their parents' home. That's nearly 1 in 5. This isn't a personal failing, it's a massive societal trend driven by crippling student debt and an impossible housing market. And here's the really fascinating detail. This stigma is largely a Western invention. In many cultures across Asia, the Middle East, Southern Europe, multi-generational living isn't just normal, it's the ideal. It's seen as a sign of family unity, respect for elders, and collective strength. Families pool resources, they share responsibilities, they support each other. They see it as a strategic advantage, not a source of shame. So I asked myself, why was I letting a cultural script that no longer serves us dictate my happiness and my financial future? I made a conscious decision to reject the stigma. I started owning my choice. When people asked, I'd say, yeah, I live with my parents. It's fantastic. I've saved a fortune and we have a great time. The confidence with which I said it completely disarmed any potential judgment. And most of the time, the response was, wow, that's so smart. I wish I could do that. The truth is, true independence isn't about the address you live at. It's about having control over your life. Are you truly independent if you're a slave to your landlord and your debt? Or are you more independent if you make a strategic, temporary sacrifice to build a foundation for genuine, long-term freedom? I chose the latter. It was a complete paradigm shift. I wasn't failing, I was being strategic. I wasn't moving backward, I was building a launchpad. Hey, if this idea of breaking free from outdated expectations and taking back control of your life is resonating with you, if you're getting some value from this video, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because I share practical strategies like this every single week. It genuinely helps the channel reach and help more people who are feeling stuck just like I was. And on that note of taking control, while I was paying off debt and building my savings, I was also exploring ways to build income streams outside of my 9-to-5. I discovered that so many people were building incredibly successful online businesses, not with huge startup costs, but by leveraging YouTube and new AI tools. It's a completely different way of thinking about building a business from scratch. So if that sounds interesting to you, I've put a link in the description below. It leads to a resource that explains exactly how ordinary people are doing this right now. Look, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it's a genuine blueprint for building something of your own. Think of it as another tool for your financial freedom toolkit. It's the same kind of thinking that led me to make this move in the first place. Okay, so we've covered the financial supercharge and we've broken the stigma, but what is it really like to live under the same roof with the people who used to ground you? This leads to my final and most personal point. Point 3, navigating the new family dynamic, from parent to child to adult to adult. This was the part I was most nervous about, self-deprecatingly. Would my mom still tell me to clean my room? Would my dad still ask what time I was coming home? Was I going to revert to being a moody teenager? The first month was an adjustment. We had to navigate new boundaries. This is absolutely critical. We sat down and had a very open conversation. We weren't a parent and a child anymore. We were 3 adults sharing a home. We established expectations for quiet hours, shared spaces, contributions to the household, everything. I wasn't a guest, I was a roommate who happened to be my son. This conversation is non-negotiable if you want this to work. Once we established that new framework, something amazing happened. The parent-child dynamic began to fade and a new adult friendship began to emerge. I got to see my parents not as my providers or rule makers, but as people. I learned about my dad's passion for history by watching documentaries with him late at night. I discovered my mom's wickedly funny sense of humor during our weekly grocery runs. We'd have conversations over dinner that were more profound and honest than anything we'd shared in the previous 15 years. Here's the unexpected, beautiful secret of it all. You get a second chance to know your parents. When you live apart, you see them in these curated 3-hour blocks on holidays. You get the highlight reel. When you live together, you get the real, unedited, day-to-day film. You see their vulnerabilities, their quirks, their wisdom in real time. I learned how to fix a leaky faucet from my dad, something a YouTube video could never quite teach me. I learned my mom's secret recipe for her amazing lasagna, not by reading it, but by cooking alongside her. Of course, it's not always perfect. There are moments of minor friction, like disagreements over the thermostat or whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher. We once had a comically serious 10-minute debate about the correct way to load silverware. Spoiler, I was right. But the conflicts are small and the resolution is quick because the foundation is love and mutual respect. According to a study by Generations United, a massive 98% of people in multigenerational households say their family functions successfully. The data proves that this works. The emotional support is an incredible, often overlooked benefit. Having a bad day at work, you come home to people who genuinely care, not to an empty apartment. Celebrating a small win, you have an instant built-in cheerleading squad. This arrangement strengthened our family bond in a way that living hundreds of miles apart never could. It wasn't a regression to childhood, it was an evolution into a new, more mature, and far more rewarding relationship. So what's the takeaway here? Moving in with my parents at 32 wasn't a step back. It was a strategic slingshot that propelled me forward, giving me immense financial power, a renewed sense of personal freedom, and a deeper, more meaningful connection with my family. It's a choice that challenges outdated definitions of success. Now, I have a question for you. Thinking about this possibility for your own life, which benefit is more compelling? Comment freedom below if it's the financial liberation, or comment family if it's the potential for a stronger family bond. I'm genuinely curious to see what you think. And if you found this discussion on unconventional paths to success valuable, you are going to love my next video. I'm going to break down why working harder keeps you broke and reveal the counterintuitive shifts you need to make to build real wealth. It's the perfect follow-up to today's conversation. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Never be afraid to play the game of life by your own rules.